Hello, coaches. Today I want to go over a process called parts integration. It's the process that I teach in NLP practitioner, which really lights up the classroom when people get how easy it is to shift somebody's perspective from stress to full alignment and wow, what are the new options? It creates this ripple effect of inspiration about, oh, what else are we going to learn in NLP? So I want to go over the steps with you just to help you better understand a very simple, easy, and effective process you can do to help your clients. Okay, so parts integration. You know those moments in time when, one part of you wants to do something and yet another part is pulling you in a different direction. It's just like having these two hands out. We're being pulled in two different directions. And this is the cause of everybody's stress. We're not congruent and in alignment with the way forward because, again, one part is pulling you in one direction and another part is pulling you in another. So you just create procrastination, burnout, stuckness, very frustrating. So if you think back to a time when you were previously stressed and think back, it's like, yeah, actually, yeah, one part of me, it could be so trivial. One part of me wanted to buy that car and another part wanted me to save the money and go on a holiday. It's trivial, but yet when it comes to making decisions, we can be pulled in two different directions. So this is that process that helps you come back into alignment with your blueprint to listen to your intuition, to know what you want. The intention with this process is to give both those parts the attention that they're craving, and in fact, even giving them a little bit of a voice to express why they're being pulled in two different directions. So this is the definition of getting your client to come back into that full, authentic alignment, the truth of who they are, rather than the parts pulling on them. Now, if you're a coach, you will hear clients say, oh, part of me this and oh, part of me that. Anytime you hear the word parts come out of your client's mouth, you know that parts integration is your go-to process to be able to help them very effectively. And of course, from there, you can pull on other NLP tools in your toolkit. But if you're hearing your client say parts, this is the process to do pretty much first. You may have played with the meta model, really dug deep into what is the problem, but you still want to come back to parts integration. So a client example may be, a little bit more serious than my car holiday example, but part of me wants to complete my kinesiology case studies, get out there with my kinesiology business. And yet another part of me is reluctant, don't want to put myself out there, a fear of being judged. So being pulled in two different directions. And one, obviously both have a highest intention of safety, of like safety for the future to build your business, and yet safety in keeping yourself small, holding yourself back. So we want to make sure that we give both of these parts the expression that they need. Another one is part of me wants to open my spiritual gifts and intuition. And yet another part is holding me back, like, oh, what's going on there? So it's important to know as the coach that both of these parts originally were connected as a whole. Both parts are like aspects that are playing out their own function, their own purpose, their own behavior. Now, if that part had the highest and best intention of the whole, think about it. It actually wouldn't be a part. It would just be within alignment. The person, your client, would just be going straight forward on the direction that is meaningful to them. Okay, so the process, just a bit of a recap if you're from my NLP training, or maybe you've been taught NLP and you just want a different trainer's perspective of this. Parts integration, obviously you want to gain your client's trust and build that rapport so that they're willing and ready to drop down their walls and barriers to expose their vulnerabilities. So having that rapport in place is so important. Now, of course, conversationally, you want to identify the two parts. There's that one part that wants this and another part that wants that. Now, for this process to have that edge to be even more effective, Your client will benefit from having conscious awareness of the unconscious parts that have been pulling them in two different directions. And so with that, we have that 3D physical hands, we utilize the whole body to express what needs to be expressed. So you tell your client to please put their palms up, as you can see from my demonstration here, putting your palms up freely. So they don't want to be heavy in their lap, and you can do this over Zoom, but you as a coach don't need to see the hands, but you don't want the hands heavy, flat on the desk or on their lap. You want them a little bit raised, possibly with the elbows just a little bit away from their body, but just so that the hands can move quite freely. Now, this process can be done with eyes opened or closed, and you want the client to get in touch with the unwanted part, the part that's holding them back. And just ask your client to, okay, recognize there's that unwanted part. Part of you doesn't want to, step out with your business. And if you have that unwanted part, to please come out onto one hand. And then the coach will get the VAK for that. So the VAK, the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic. First thing that comes to mind with the client, because this process needs to be short, sharp, and to the point. Does the part take on a shape or a symbol? So that part of you that doesn't want to put yourself out there with the business, does it take on bring that part out. Does it take on a shape or a symbol? The client may say, yeah, it looks like it looks like a heavy lead ball, or it looks like a cloud, or it looks like some slime. I think I've had it all. It looks like my mother. It looks like a tree. It looks like whatever. However, the unconscious mind wants to represent that unwanted part is absolutely perfect, and just go with it. So that part, does it take on a shape or a symbol? For this case, let's say it's a gray circle. And then I want to get a bit curious with the submodalities within that part. Does that part look like anyone that you know? Is it hot and cold? Does it have a voice? Is there any weight to it? Just narrowing in a little bit about what the qualities are of that part. That way the client can really get that conscious awareness of something outside of them that represents the unwanted part. So yeah, in this case, yeah, that unwanted part, the part that wants to hold back from putting myself out there with my business, it's a grey ball, it's quite heavy, it's cold, it's pulling me down. And then we want to bring our attention to the other hand, the desired part. Ooh. And have that desired part come out onto your hand. And again, getting the VAK for the desired part. Does that part take on a shape or a symbol? Does it look like anyone you know? If that part had something to say, what would it want us to know? Whose voice is that? If it had a weight, what would it weigh? And there's a typo there on my slide, but just go with it. So that desired part there, the part of me that wants that abundant business, yeah, it's coming out as like that royal triangle, and it's light and it's just rich in everything that it wants for me to create. Okay, great. So we now have two parts on our hands. Now we're going to bring our attention over to the unwanted part first. And as the coach, you want the client to give you short, sharp answers. That's all you want. And I would say, connecting to that part, the part of you that's holding yourself back. What's the highest intention of holding yourself back? Or I can start off, for what purpose? So for what purpose would you hold yourself back? Safety. And for what purpose would you want safety? Oh, well, to ensure my survival. Okay. And what's the highest intention for you to ensure your survival? Oh, okay, life. And what's the highest intention, or for what purpose would you want life? Oh, well, it's a full expression of myself. And you can see from that little example there that the client is chunking up. They're going quite abstract, coming up to the things that are the highest the highest intention for somebody's experience here. You will find that when you get to the top, when the client can't sort of find any more answers, it will loop. Typically, it will loop on things like freedom, safety, security, life. And so when you get to that loop, you'll hear it. You'll hear them say, okay, so for what purpose would you have that freedom? Oh, well, for life. Okay. And I'm curious, what's the highest intention of life? Oh, well, to have liberty. And for what purpose would you have liberty? Oh, freedom. And so you can hear that the client is looping. We've chunked up so far away from the detail of the problem of, oh my gosh, I can't put myself out there, to recognizing that to to come to freedom, safety, security for somebody's purpose. So you continue to do that until you get a loop. That's now in place. Now we bring our attention over to the other side. And you, as the coach, I must say, write down the words that they're saying so that you got that accurate recall. They're saying freedom, liberty, safety, whatever it is, write it down. And I know that some parts can go on for like 3 minutes. And I've known some parts to express for 10, 15 odd minutes. However the client does it is completely fine, as they consciously become aware of the fears and the limitations that have held them back. So then we bring we bring our attention over to the other hand and the part that wants the abundant, rich business. And it's simple. Okay, bring out that triangle. And I'm curious, what's the highest intention of having your own business? Oh, well, freedom. And for what purpose would you have freedom? Well, self-expression, creativity. Great. For what purpose would you have creativity? Well, that's my truth. Okay. So what's the purpose of having your truth? Freedom. For what purpose would you have your truth, your freedom? Yeah, you can see that it's going to start to loop at a chunked up level. Again, it'll have similar qualities, similar attitudes, similar attributes to the other parts. Highest intention. There'll be a theme running through within your one client there that the highest intention will be freedom or self-expression or authenticity. There'll be something at that highest level where both parts are matching one another. And so when you've got that as the coach, you will know intuitively that both parts have expressed their highest intention for what they're doing for the client. You ask the client, have the parts notice that they were once part of the whole. And as your hands come together, just paying attention to how you feel. And when that integration just happens inside, there will be some shifts, allowing your hands to come together. So you allow that integration to just happen at an unconscious level. Notice the shifts, notice how that feeling inside, and just even allowing those hands to come together. And this is where you can ask your client, what's this new shape? What's this new symbol as the circle and the triangle come together for this highest intention of freedom or purpose or whatever it is? Some people may say butterfly or a tree, a star. I've heard it all. But whatever the client says is absolutely perfect. And so with that, I know I've already demonstrated my hands have already come together, but I would encourage that client to just bring their hands up to their heart space. And I may gesture that as the coach or encourage them verbally to say, okay, notice that, notice those hands coming together, feeling into that integration, noticing how the energy shifts, notice how it feels inside to allow that shift to occur and allow that to be complete. Just take all the time that you need. This will have a profound shift in your life. Now, at this level, all of the linguistics are incredibly important. They are embedded commands, as we learn in NLP. They're all about telling the client to give themselves permission to feel the goodness, to notice the subtleties or the massiveness of the full body tingles and the yumminess, that things are changing and that they are in charge and allowing the changes to occur, and what ripple effect that will have on their life. So you want to make sure that at this point in time, when you're doing this integration piece, that the client will be in some level of trance. You are now communicating to the unconscious level. You are now allowing them to come together to move forward within alignment. And because we can, then we're going to future pace. And so now think of a time in the future where previously you wouldn't have had that old response, and notice how you feel instead. The client may express it or not, it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is where previously they wanted that rich, abundant business, and yet the limitations were holding them back. Now it's like, yeah, actually, I have the permission to take my business as far and rich and abundant as I want to take it. There's no parts of me holding myself back. So you've got the steps and what's really going on with this process. Because I know at this point in time in training, clients or sorry, students are saying like, hold on, it cannot be that easy. And I'm like, with NLP, there is so much intertwined at an unconscious level that's allowing the client to experience these shifts. Let's have a look at what's going on underneath all of this. So I want you to backtrack. That's my daughter Lily, about 20 years ago. When you were growing up, we all had needs, the needs to belong, the needs to be heard, the need to be seen, respected, valued, security, to know that you matter. We all have these needs as human beings. That's the human experience. And so growing up, if your needs are not being met, part of you will split off from the whole. It's like this aspect of you. Thinking about that being coming into this world, and let's make the assumption without past lives, without womb work, let's just assume that somebody comes in perfect and whole. And so when your needs are not being met, or I'll start again actually, and when you come in as this perfect whole, all of your survival is dependent on these grown-ups, these caretakers to look after you, to have your needs met. And if your needs are not being met, the child will conform and adapt and shift and change who they are to make sure that their survival, that number one prime directive is in place. And so when they're not being seen, when they're not being heard, part of them has to actually split off from the whole to ensure the survival. Like, okay, this isn't working for us right now. So we have to just conform, we have to adapt and shift and change who we are to still get our survival met. So this part is like frozen in time. That part is still waiting to get its need met. Its part is still separate, and that human energy, it does not like to have ourselves split off in all different spaces and directions. So that particular part is telling us it doesn't know how to solve its problem, that all that part knows is how to adapt to the adults to ensure its survival. But its core need is still sitting there. So as an example, is that 4-year-old, if it perceives that no one is listening to it, that 4-year-old aspect will split off from the whole and it's currently separate. Now, anytime you are triggered as a grown-up and believe that you are not being heard, that 4-year-old will rule the system, hence these adult tantrums that we see. And so this is the process to get that part to come back to the whole, to be heard. Now, of course, we've got the other part of you that's craving to have your needs met, that's craving to have that fulfillment and to craving to have that authentic truth. And so that's where this process works, as these two parts work together. One part that's been broken off from the whole is screaming to be heard, and the other part is there to have certainty and the ease in moving forward. So those parts are both working together to chunk up, as I say, to come back to that truth. And so this is what it means to come back into that true alignment of yourself. Now, clearly, everybody's going to have lots and lots of different parts that are playing out. And the more that you do this process, the more that you come back to your truth so that you have that truth in your self-expression, how you live your life, what you do that matters to you, rather than conforming, people-pleasing, and adapting to what people want around you. This is the process that shifts a lot of those old layers of conforming for your survival, people pleasing, to be able to show up with that full strength, that confidence in what you're doing and why. So it's a very, 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 very powerful process. At master's level, we teach you how to do this more conversationally, but at practitioner level, like, it's so exciting. Just teaching this last week and everyone like, whoa, talk about inner child work. And there it is. packaged up so easily. So if you'd like to join me in my next NLP practitioner training, the link's down the bottom. I'm Claire Chancellor from Be Your Purpose Coaching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.